And with that, we welcome you to Champaign. Dave Revson, Jerry DiNardo, and Howard Griffith. We haven't seen practice yet. We'll get to what we're anticipating there in just a few minutes. But we've already spent a lot of time around this program today. Bret Bielema had us in his team meeting to start the day. We were in his office for a good period of time as well. So what have you gleaned so far here today before we even get to what we're going to see on the field?
I think two things. First thing is he talked about situational football, which he's going to practice today. And I don't think many people do a better job teaching situational football than Bret Bielema does. So anxious to see that. And the other thing, they're getting ready for a scrimmage tomorrow night. So it's not going to be a physical practice, but it'll be a good practice, and it'll be a way for the players to be totally prepared to scrimmage tomorrow, because there's a competition for positions, and you win them in scrimmages.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands out for me is when you talk about situational football, sometimes you immediately think you're talking defense, you're talking offense separately in those meetings. But what he does is he teaches everything from the front of a room for the entire team. And I think that's an important part of it, because now everyone knows what they need to be doing in certain situations. Even if you're not going to be in that, you can still talk about, okay, what happens when it's 3rd and 1 and we have sudden change? What happens when there's a turnover? So there's a lot of different things that as a football team, they are learning in their team meetings.
I think one of the things that was fascinating for me, and again, you guys have been in hundreds and hundreds of team meetings, but for those of us who aren't in those or haven't been in them routinely in the course of our lifetimes, it's always fascinating for me to get some insight into it and the degree to which it is scripted, like without giving away too much, anything that would be proprietary information, but give people a sense. And Howard started touching on it. But again, like, to what degree in terms of the micro are we talking? Because it felt like really granular stuff, but really important stuff.
I would say the best way to answer that is he covered some situations today that may not happen in an entire season. Maybe all Big Ten schools. So it wasn't the typical short yardage, 1st and 10, red zone. There was some really deep conversation about situations that we may not see for a year or 2 years. That's where he has progressed with all the situations.
And I think one of the other things that stands out, because I talk about this all the time, when you can know when a team is buying in to the guy in the front of the room because they repeat those things in their meetings. Well, guess what? We watched that happen, and they showed them an example of that with another organization, an NFL organization, and they were able to see that. And they see how just important it is to everybody to be on the same page.
One of the things that was really cool is a lot of the teaching tapes involve some of the best players in professional football making mistakes. And that resonates with players because it tells you, A, that everyone makes mistakes, and I think that, hey, that's where they want to be. And they get to see those players in action. All right, let's fast forward. We're going to watch this team go through practice today. As you guys said, it is going to be highly situational. That being said, we'll get some insight into what's going on here with Illinois. What are you most interested in trying to learn about this team on the field?
I've got to tell you, when you look on paper and you look back to last year to what they're returning on the defensive line, they could arguably have the best defensive line, not only in the Big Ten, but one of the best in the country. So I'm looking to see how those guys have progressed. We may not get the best picture of that because they're preparing for a scrimmage, but I think we'll get a lot of insight on where they are as a defensive line.
I'd say offensively, like most teams in the conference, they're in a quarterback battle. It'll be interesting to watch them. I think Aaron Henry taking over the defense for Ryan Walters is a major step in this program. And, you know, Bret Bielema has a staff, I think, that he's always trying to promote from within. I think that's what he's done with Coach Henry. I'm just really anxious to see him work.
That should be a fascinating day. As you say, there are some really interesting positional battles going on here, but a team that has laid an incredibly solid foundation over the first 2 years for Bret Bielema, and now can they take that extra step, perhaps find themselves in Indy? Look forward to sharing all of this with you here in the next hour from Champaign. It was quite a season in Champaign a year ago. It had been 15 years since they had a winning record in conference play, more than a decade since they had been ranked, ending the longest drought in the Power 5, had never cracked the CFP top 25, set a school record for all conference players as well. The offense took a major jump, leading the Big Ten in completion percentage one season after finishing last. The man who ran that show, OC Barry Lunney, with Jerry.
Coach, second year here at Illinois, difference between year one and year two?
I think there's a big difference. Just the retention from the volume of the install, understanding a lot more of the details in the offense. Obviously, we were able to keep our offensive staff intact to a large degree. We had one turnover, but other than that, it was a really seamless transition. A lot of returning players that know the offense very well. So I've been really pleased with the transition going into year 2, about the knowledge and the advancement and the pace that we've been able to go with.
Most of the conference are trying to figure out who's in quarterback. You're in that group. Tell us a little bit about who's in the competition.
Yeah, it's been a daily competition. I think we're big believers in that, like at all positions. We want to bring the best out of all of our players, including the quarterbacks, via competition. Luke Altmaier and John Paddock and Donovan Leary have been received the bulk of the repetitions when it comes with the one group. We've kind of split that up a little bit over the course of the spring, and fall camp's been a very similar feel and breakup that we did post-spring as well. So, we've got 3 guys in the mix, and as we get closer to school starting and closer to game time, obviously it's becoming more and more clear. Been really pleased with all the quarterbacks for the most part during camp, of the consistency. But Luke and John are the 2 most experienced players we have in the room, and I think that shows on a daily basis.
So everybody goes through this, and everybody wants to make a decision at some point. Nobody really wants to ever say what that date is. You don't want to be under that kind of pressure. But is it better if you make a decision sooner, or do you think that doesn't really matter?
I think I've been on, Coach, you've been probably on all ends of the spectrum. I know I have been too as a player, as a coach. I've seen different head coaches have different philosophies about that. I think it probably depends on the team and the year and the quarterback. And so I think the way we're handling it and the way coaches handling it right now, I think it's just right for our team. And, to give some clarity for our team and feel as we get close to the game will certainly happen. And but the bottom line is, look, and this is Big Ten football, and we've got to have multiple guys ready to play. There's going to be one guy that starts, but we all know this, in this conference and this level, that you need multiple guys ready for the season for you to be able to have a continuity and have the type of season that you want to be able to have.
You played the position at a high level. I have to believe that helps you coach the quarterbacks and make a decision. What qualities usually separates the starter from everybody else?
Probably just the consistency. Obviously, ability, Coach, right? I mean, you've got to have a certain baseline ability, and we've got some talent at the position, but, they're all different, the way they lead, and I'm not just talking about my guys, but just in general, there's probably no 2 alike in a large degree, but, they just got to have that, thing that's hard to put your finger on. It's hard to put in words, the ability to lead the team and have toughness and obviously intelligence. I could go on and on about a lot of the characteristics, but we're looking for somebody that does their job and elevates those around him, and that's a critical factor for us at quarterback.
You only allowed 2 major scrimmages with the new rules. What do you want? What goals do you have for tomorrow's scrimmage?
We got to clean up from the first one. We did some good things in the first scrimmage, but too many self-inflicted wounds, and we got to really work hard tomorrow to clean the game up, kind of scale back maybe what we're asking them to do, and let's play with great fundamentals, and let our players play with confidence. And so we're looking forward to cleaning that up and playing a cleaner overall scrimmage.
Appreciate your time, Coach. Always enjoy watching your work.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
No team in the nation did that more frequently than Illinois last season. A school record and national best 24 interceptions, 5 more than any other Power 5 team. The Illini also led the nation in pass efficiency defense by an enormous margin as their opponents completed a national low 51% of their pass attempts. Let's break down this defense a little bit, and I think we have to start with the change at the top. I mean, we spent a lot of time heaping praise on Ryan Walters over the last 2 years, really, and justifiably. He's now the head coach at Purdue, as we know. This transition is going to be fascinating. Aaron Henry is someone who Bret Bielema thinks extremely highly of. He takes over this defense. What do you think in terms of what we might see in terms of differences and how well they'll be able to capture that momentum that they've built the last couple of years?
Yeah, first of all, I think we know that Bret Bielema hires only really good coaches, and Coach Henry was elevated on the staff. I think the defense, obviously, because of the back end, is going to have to be a little bit different, right? They're not going to be a pressure defense. They're fairly conservative offensively, and again, I think as the season goes on, the defense will continue to improve just like the offense. But I don't see a lot of man coverage. I don't see a lot of one-on-one coverage with the back end until they gain some confidence.
And as you talk about that confidence, so what's going to allow the back end to get confidence? Pressure on the quarterback. And believe you me,
Right.
they know how to get that going. And we talked about that offense, our offensive line, the offensive line here. But one of the reasons they've been able to improve so quickly is because of what they've been able to do defensively in that defensive line. Linebackers can run. They're going to make plays there. So it's a matter of bringing the secondary, particularly the safeties, along. And it'll take a little time, but having a front seven that they have will really give them some room for error.
You know, the term complementary football, meaning, offense and defense have to complement one another. Bret Bielema has been through this before. It doesn't mean it's the same offense and defense every year, right? It means that it's almost the opposite. You're tweaking the offense and defense based on your personnel, based on your coaches, and I think that's one of the most skillful things that Bret Bielema does. He makes an offense and defense by complementary football.
And playing to your strengths, right? And so he loves his outside linebackers in Akis and Coleman. He thinks those guys are going to be great. We know about the guys up front, Newton and Randolph. So, yeah, you lose 3 defensive backs who were picked in the top 3 rounds of the NFL draft. You've got to play a little differently. But again, the pieces are there to be really good.
Right. And again, not everybody does that. Some people have an offensive scheme and a defensive scheme, and they're going to stick to it. I don't think that's what we're going to watch with Illinois. I think the defensive scheme is going to change a little bit and complement the offense, which is also changing because they have a new quarterback.
Well, that's ultimately what you need to do as a head coach, right?
Absolutely.
Fit your systems, offense, defense, and special teams to really put your players in the best position to go out and compete.
And yet, while some things might change, the identity is there.
Yeah.
And the identity has been implemented from the beginning, and a really strong defense is a big part of it. And I don't think any of the 3 of us believe that won't continue this year here in Champaign. We've talked about a lot of impressive numbers for the Illini D last year, but no defensive stat is more important than this one. Points allowed. Gave up fewer than 13 per game, the best mark in the nation. In fact, 3 of the top 4 scoring defenses a year ago were in the Big Ten West. A ton of production back from that unit, including the 46 tackles of linebacker Tarique Barnes, who is with Howard.
Different voice in the room now. Tell me how you've grown as a leader.
Really learning how to use my voice in the proper way, uplift my teammates, and I feel like in that way keep us connected as more brothers. We talked about brotherhood and family a lot here. So really, like knowing that you have somebody who's willing to, invest in you and have that output for you. I think that's the biggest way I've adjusted in me and my leadership.
What are some of the ways you do that, though? How do you guys get together and start to build that bond?
Yeah, I think in a major way is having short-term memory while we out there on the field, knowing that like somebody may make a mistake. Nobody's perfect out here, so hey man, you good. Next play, keep it going. Whether they be putting a coaching point into the younger guys, like kind of teaching little like tips about the game, just putting experience back into the room.
A different defensive coordinator for you this year. How's that transition been?
And the transition for with Coach Henry has been real smooth. I feel like we've talked a lot more one-on-one now that he's entered the DC position as me being a Mike linebacker. We just knowing how he thinks, how he approaches and wants to call the game. I think I know where he is with that.
Okay,
right
so it's critical for you to both be on the same page. So
Right.
whatever adjustments that you can make coming off the field.
Right.
How do you do some of that? Like when you're in the game. And you see some different things when you come off and you're trying to give the information to your coaches. How important is that?
That's vital. In-game adjustments a lot of the time, especially in the past, is what has kind of helped us out. Letting coach know that we may see certain things or somebody may be playing something a certain way and putting us in the right call or making an adjustment for position group or us or for the entire defense, whether that's to talk to everybody or draw it up on the board or however coach want to go about it. That's how we kind of adjust on the field. But communication is important all the way through.
Massive defensive linemen up front.
Yeah.
How does that help your job?
And it makes my job easy. Those guys are dynamic. Keith, Johnny, the whole front dynamic group, very dominant. So it makes my job easier to flow over.
Give me some of the keys that it's going to take for you guys to really continue where you left off last year.
Stay aggressive, be dominant, be confident, believe in one another. And I think those are things that we talk about already. But if we can make sure we're on the same page, whether we're all right with whatever, whether we're all wrong, as long as we have each other back and everybody's moving and flowing and we're playing aggressively and relentlessly, I think we're going to still be able to produce that type of.
You guys lost some people on defense last year to the NFL draft. but there's a buzz still about this team. Talk to me about some of the new guys that are going to have to step in and continue to elevate this defense.
Most of the guys that left on the defense, you know, at the back end, you got Devin Witherspoon, you got Sidney Brown, Kendall Smith, Quan Martin. And I think the guys that are filling those positions are filling it fine. But like I said, a lot of this game comes with experience, and those guys know how to play. So, you know, now we get to when it's time to play ball, I think they'll be well prepared for it.
Well, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it, and good luck this season.
Thank you.
The Illinois players talking about their head coach, Bret Bielema, who joins me now. Coach, in what ways do you feel like in these first 2 years you've put your stamp on this program?
You know, I always say as a coach, like, you love to read what your players say in response to other questions. And when they regurgitate some of the things that you've said, or your coaches, or the DNA of this building, right? I think that says a lot, and our kids tend to say those things, and it makes you excited. But really to see their growth, right? Those three guys had tremendous faith to stay here in this world that we're in with the transfer portal and all that goes on, right? Like, I came in this building, literally sat in this meeting room and said, hey, I'm the newest family member here, and from this day forward, we're in this thing together. And I think because we were able to do that, because of coming out of COVID, you know, it really gave you the opportunity to have everybody in this building stay, and a lot of them did, and they're really reaping the rewards of that now.
What are some of those messages that you think have resonated the most? In other words, as you look around and you see things that are different than what you got here, than when you got here, what are some of those things?
You know, Dave, to be quite honest, one of the things we really just drive home every day is communication, right? Like, the greatest things I've ever been involved with have had great communication, and really the most frustrating moments or the moments of failure have usually been the result of poor communication. And it has so many different levels, right? They have communication between themselves as teammates. You have a player-to-coach relationship within their position rooms. You have a coordinator relationship in the units on offense, defense, and special teams. We have communication as a head coach, communication to me and my staff. It's really, a big part of what we believe in here. I would say the other, catalyst that by far is just, I think our guys really believe in the TSD, tough, smart, dependable. They live it, they breed it. We recruit to it. We build our program 24/7, 365 off of that, and it's something that can't be faked.
So you've instilled that culture, and it's pretty apparent from spending time around here, and we've been here much of the day, and we really appreciate all of the access that you give us. So what's that next step? What needs to happen now?
Well, win games, right? Like, we were a 5-7 team in our first year that was on the hair of the chinny chin chin from making a bowl game. We didn't make it. The next year we start off 7-1 and really begin to have some people take notice. But on the back end of it, we finished 1-4, right? And really spent the entire offseason looking at every aspect from schematic X's and O's to the way we approach our daily living on how we train them, how we recover them. And then obviously, this year, a little bit different. Our first 4 games this year are all new opponents, just literally new opponents we've never faced before. And even in our division, right, in the Big Ten West, you have a new regime at Nebraska. You have a new regime in a sense at Purdue, but we know a lot about those guys, so it's a new catalyst there. You have new people at Wisconsin. And then obviously there's just a little bit of transition at Northwestern. So it's just really all around us, there's going to be a lot of newness. We don't have a lot of true rematch games. We have a rematch game against Wisconsin. We have a rematch game against Purdue. We have a rematch game against Nebraska in our division, but all of that will be new coaching staff, so it's a little bit different.
It was interesting, as I said, to spend a lot of the day here. You allowed us to go into a team meeting. And one of the things that was fascinating, you talk about communication, a ton of communication on your end, but you also have the players participate. You ask guys questions and have them respond, and it's a lot of give and take here. What's different in camp? In other words, what are the things that you can get done in camp in a team meeting like that maybe you couldn't get done the second week of October?
It's probably a great question for the outside world to realize. When we're in fall camp, we really do have limitless hours with our players. We bring them in fairly early in the morning, early in the week. We go early Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. On Wednesday evening, we flip and go to evening practices, so we let them sleep in a little Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The old school me would have never done that, right? We kind of keep grinding, but today's world, I think kids need mental recovery. They need to sleep in and get a little bit more rest. But in these meetings, that's just not possible during the course of a school year. And when we start into the school season or into classes, it's a 20-hour work week. And, if you practice 3 days a week and take about 4 hours a day, that's 12 hours right there. That's the maximum you can have on any given day. And then, You have 3 other work days. You got to give them a day off. Mondays are our day off. I can't touch them, but it really gets hard just to have enough time to get the game plan in and also kind of be there for them as a head coach as well.
Fascinating to me that you added Jim Leonard to your staff, and we talked a little bit about this at Media Days because it had just happened the day before, I believe. But especially for someone in your position, I mean, to have Jim around, he's a great defensive mind. You're a real good defensive mind as well, and you have some incredible ones in this office. Do you feel like does it challenge you in a different sort of way? I mean, do you have to have a certain sort of confidence as a head coach to say we're going to bring someone else with this kind of resume in?
You know what? I've been given that question quite a few times, right? And I remember meeting Jimmy Leonard as a defensive coordinator going to the University of Wisconsin. He's a senior waiting for a great senior year, and he walks in and he looks like he's 12, right? He looks about like he is now, and just had an immediate relationship with him. Enjoyed an incredible 1 year with him. We were right on the cusp of winning a Big Ten championship that year. Fell just a little bit short, but literally took a defense. I think they were ranked in the 80s and took them to number 1 in the country. And Jimmy and I think, immediately had a bond there. And then as he got through his playing career, I kept saying this kid's going to be a great coach, da-da-da-da-da. And then when I was away from Wisconsin, that's when he really grew. And but I knew a lot of people there, from Coach Alvarez. Everybody continued to talk about him. But Jimmy he's a very good football coach, right? He's a good ball player, and he was a good ball player. He was very extremely gifted athletically and talent-wise, but he was an incredibly intelligent player. Probably in my early career days, probably one of the most intelligent players I've ever been around. And that, a lot of times, facilitates into a really good coach. So I love to have as many quality people as I can in this building as humanly possible. He sees things for the first time here, and any knowledge he can give me about what he sees from his point of view can only be valuable.
Well, we're talking about the defense. You're making a transition. You said number 1 defense in the country. You had the number 1 defense in the country a year ago. Ryan Walters ends up getting the Purdue job. Tell us about Aaron Henry and how things are going to be different there.
Couldn't be more excited. Obviously, even when I hired Ryan, back when I first got here, I was very specific. Hey, I don't want your defense that you ran at Missouri. There were some things that I was concerned about. I didn't want to run the defense that I had been associated with in the NFL or in my college. I wanted to make this the Illinois defense. And we sat down. I brought in Andy Boo, who'd worked with me, Aaron Henry, who worked for me and played for me, Terrence Jameson, who played for me, our corners coach now, Antonio Finellis. We interviewed on our first staff. We hired Aaron Henry instead, so to bring him back into the fold and to add Charlie Bullen. I love coordinators. Aaron's going to be an incredible coordinator. I've had I think I've had 3 coordinators, defensive coordinators, become head coaches now, and my guess is Aaron will follow that same track. But our staff is just incredibly strong, and I think Aaron really learned to appreciate that over the last couple of years. That it's not one person; it's a summation of those people, and I'm excited to see this crew work.
At what point do you want to have a decision on your quarterback?
Probably 2 weeks out. I've always kind of done that. I thought, John Paddock has had an incredibly good fall camp. No doubt that Luke Altmaier has had a really good camp as well. Donovan Leary has been strong, Kirkland Michau, but I would say those top 3 guys have just been competing every day. Luke has got a lot of talent and does a lot of really good things. And the great thing is, just finishing up practice 12, the growth he's had from those first 3 practices to where we are now have been really good. And I feel better as a whole in that quarterback room than I've ever felt during my time here at Illinois.
Last question for you. What would it mean to win the West in the last year of the West?
A special point for me, when I was a head coach at Wisconsin, I was the last to win a coaching title, a Big Ten title, in the old way, right? My first Big Ten title, there was no Big Ten championship game. We won it. We beat Ohio State. They were number 1 in the country. Went on the road, I believe, beat a top 3 or 4 team at Iowa. Came back and closed it out with 4 home game wins or 4 wins at the end of the year. Won the Big Ten title, went to the Rose Bowl. The next year was the first Big Ten championship game. We beat Michigan State in a rematch game. The next year, we beat Nebraska in a rematch game, kind of a walk-off. I think it was like 70-20 or something like that. And after that, I made transition and left the league. And now to come back into it, and last year I always thought it was going to be the last divisional game. But then when we added USC, UCLA, I was kind of high-fiving myself because I knew that would allow us to play divisional one more time. But we're gonna concentrate on Toledo. I think it's fun things to think about and talk about. But I also know in all those years when I've won championships, I've been fortunate enough, even in the NFL when we won a Super Bowl, the only way you get to where you want to be at the end is take advantage of every opportunity you get. And that's what we'll do. We'll have a home opener against Toledo, returning MAC champions. We go on the road to a Kansas team that is an incredible football team with good players. We come back and play Penn State, who a lot of people might be the pick of the conference. So we've got a tremendous challenge in front of us.
Thanks for your hospitality, Bret. Always great to catch up with you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Here's the schedule for Bielema and the Illini. Starts with a home game against Toledo in primetime here on the Big Ten Network. Intriguing game the following Friday in Lawrence, Kansas against the improving Jayhawks, followed by the conference opener on Fox against Penn State. Maryland and Indiana are the other two crossovers. The traditional season finale against Northwestern is here in Champaign. Illinois' offense made some significant improvements last year, rising nearly 40 spots nationally in total offense as compared to the 2021 campaign. It was the pass game that showed the most improvement, jumping from 12th in the Big Ten in passing efficiency to 6th in just one season. Let's dive into this Illinois offense a little bit. I think everyone wants to start with the quarterbacks. Altmaier and Paddock seem to be the guys who are dueling it out. Howard, were you able to separate it all based on what we saw today?
Yeah, I don't think I was able to separate it. And quite frankly, you look at the coaching staff not naming a quarterback at this particular point probably gives us a little indication that they're both doing a really good job, but neither has separated themselves at this point. But I thought what was encouraging with what we saw today is neither one was turning the football over, and both seem to have a great command of the offense. It may be one of those situations that they're going to need both of those guys at some point during the season to continue to move this offense forward.
Howard, this offense seems to me to be one that's really going to improve as the year goes on. And here's why. Offensive line, they have three guys back. The Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country, they were semifinalists. There weren't any other semifinalists in the conference. Michigan won it, but that's pretty impressive, right? Then, they've got two really good running backs. They've got Isaiah on the flank. The issue is going to be the quarterback. But when they settle with the offensive line, when they settle with all the other positions, the support for a first-year quarterback, I think, is going to be really good. It's a great schedule for a team to develop. And I just have so much confidence in Bret Bielema that he's going to manage that offense so it's going to look a lot different in the middle of the season than it does at the end.
And we saw them make a pretty nice jump last year. Look, this was a team that was led by its defense. The defense was ahead of the offense, clearly, but it was Barry Lunney Jr.'s first year running this offense. They improved, certainly improved as the year went on, too, and now it becomes a challenge of can you take that next step. But I think that, look, you don't need to be overpowering. They're not going to need to score 40 points a game to win games here, Howard.
They're not. And as I mentioned earlier, not turning football over is going to be a big part of it. You mentioned the running backs a little earlier. That's a room that's very deep here. So you talk about this offensive line. Think about this, right? You talked about the Joe Moore Award. And I don't think people really think about Illinois as being one of those teams that was in the middle of that, right? That's not something that comes to the forefront of your mind when you're talking about Illinois football. So that means they've got a lot of experience coming back. They are well coached, and that run game is really going to help them continue to allow these quarterbacks to develop.
And let's not underestimate, this is the second year in the system. I mean, 2 years ago, they were in a different offense. So being in the system for the second year, again, it's that quarterback position. But as we all know, there's only 3 quarterbacks coming back in the Big Ten. So everyone else is in the same boat.
It is really cool to see Illinois as an elite line of scrimmage team.
Yeah.
And they are an elite line of scrimmage team, and that's Bret Bielema's imprint all over it. One of the key contributors to that attack, quarterback turned wide receiver Isaiah Williams. Williams finished second in the conference in catches with 82. His yards after the catch numbers are staggering, totaling 691 of his 715 receiving yards. That is nearly 97%. The yardage total second in the nation, tops in Power 5. Here's Williams with Howard.
You've really become a leader in that wide receiver room. Tell me what the transition has been like from you, being a quarterback originally and then making that adjustment to the wide receiver, now being a leader in that group.
Yeah, so starting off as a quarterback, I came in as the young guy. By the time we had no quarterbacks in the room, really. And then we had brought in Brandon Peters. And then just being in that room for a while, I had learned a lot about being a leader, just being a quarterback. You got to be that vocal leader on the field. Also, you got to lead by example. So coming in as a freshman, we had Brandon Peters, who wasn't really the greatest vocal leader, but he was more that vocal guy. And I was just that guy that lead by example. And Rod Smith kind of put that in us, just leading. So when I switched to receiver, that was a easy transition. Always having to be that vocal guy when you in the huddle. Every single little thing, all them things translated when I switched to receiver. So I felt like it was just easy, just over time. First you come in, you got to learn the receiver position. So I had to be a follower at first. I had guys that I had to follow, had to look up to. But then after I learned from them, it was just easy to take over because all the times at quarterback where I had no choice but to be a leader.
Tell me about physically how the transition worked for me, because they're asking you to do different things physically at the quarterback position. Now, I mean, you seem to have mastered the skills of getting in and out of breaks, setting up receivers. How was that transition?
The toughest transition starting off was the conditioning. I remember my first fall camp. I'm telling you, like a weekend, pull my hamstring, running 3 go routes and between 4 plays. It was tough for me. The conditioning part was most definitely tough because I was so used to just sitting in the pocket, throwing the ball, then here and there, breakout. And even when I did run as a quarterback, it'd just be like 10-yard runs here. Like I'm literally running 40 yards down the field every single play. And I feel like that was the biggest transition that first year. Really just getting my conditioning down. And then from there, I really just focused on my skills. I really watched almost every NFL receiver, like top 20, top 30 receivers. I really just studied their film. What did they do good? I try to emulate that with my game. And then I got a great coach, Coach George McDonald. He also got a great helper, Coach Vince. And every single day they pushing me to get better. Helping me with things, making cut-ups for me, things that I need to work on. So I feel like my job has really been easy. They kind of just laid the foundation. I kind of just been sticking to that foundation every single day.
Who are some of the players you emulate your game after?
Man, you can name, I could say Stephon Diggs, Tarique Hill, Jalen Waddle, and all them guys. I just take something that's great about their game. Like the way that Tarique Hill able to use his speed, but also able to run great routes. I feel like that's special. Not too many guys could do it. Then also you got guys like, I'm not similar to him, but DeAndre Hopkins. Like he catch everything that's thrown this way, contested. So I feel like I had to add that to my game this offseason. That's one thing I worked on too, was contested catches. Being able, when you play against great DBs, you're not going to be able to make 2 yards of separation every time. So you got to be able to make tough catches. So, man, I kind of just study almost every single receiver. And then this summer I had the chance to study. It was 3 guys I followed throughout the draft process. I followed Josh Downs, I followed Tank Dell.
Okay.
And then I also followed Jaden Reed.
Those are all some good ones to follow.
Yeah, them some good ones.
Right. Tell me this really quickly. This will be the last one for you. You've got a unique perspective when you're looking at this quarterback battle you guys got going on. Tell me a little something about each one. I'm not asking you to pick one, but tell me a little bit about each one.
Okay, so they all bring something special and unique to the team. I would say John Paddock, he more that vocal leader, that guy with the swagger, like he get everybody going, he got the juice. And then you got a guy like Luke who can make every throw on the field. Amazing touch, very accurate. He can put the ball wherever you need him to put it. And then also you got Donovan Leary, a guy who also got a great arm, but at the same time he young and he learning from the other two. And what's special about that quarterback room, it's a brotherhood. I came into a quarterback room where I say we was close, but it was always like competition. It was kind of like, okay, I want you to do bad, so this could be my job.
Looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with this group, this a different group. This group they always competing, but also they cheering for each other. They want the next person to do great because they only know that's going to make them better. And this is a special competition that I haven't seen before at the quarterback position here while I've been here.
Well, thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate it. Good luck this season.
All right, thank you.
Back in Champaign, stop number 12 of our camp tour. What a transformation it has been for Illinois on the defensive side under Bret Bielema. Finished either last or next to last in the league in scoring D 2 of the final 3 years under Lovie Smith. Didn't just lead the Big Ten in that category in Bielema's second season. As we mentioned, they also led the nation. New coordinator in Aaron Henry. He's with Jerry.
Coach, defensive coordinator, how does it feel to have your own unit and run the defense?
Man, it's been an absolute blessing. It's just absolute. It's crazy, right? From playing for Coach in my early days to here now to being able to call the defense. It's it's surreal. You know, I really feel like I'm living my dream, you know, and being at this place in my career, I'm really excited about the opportunity, and I couldn't be more excited doing it for the guy I'm doing it for. So I'm taking a lot of, it's been a very special moment because of the guy I'm doing it for, you know what I mean? So it's a blessing.
So when you walk in the office and you're responsible for the whole defense, how different is that from when you were position coach last year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to worry about just your room as a position coach, and now being in the position to worry about everybody. You know, we had opportunities over the course of this camp to install defense, and being able to command the room and look at these guys' faces and once you captivate them in terms of, you know, the relationships you've built with them, it's easy to see why they play extremely hard. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity, but more so, we've made a lot of growth, I think, from where we were last spring to where we are now. And so I'm just ready for the opportunity for us to go out there and play our first game.
You mentioned Coach Bielema. You've worked with Coach Bielema, Coach Walters.
Yes, sir.
How have those two shaped what you do on defense?
I am forever indebted to both those guys, right? Obviously, Coach Walt over at Purdue, and Coach B, you know, him recruiting me out of high school to playing for him, to me working for him at Arkansas, to where we are now, and to be able to see how, you know, Coach was a young coordinator, Coach called defense. You know, I can remember the night before our bowl game, he pulls me in a room, and I was nervous. I was nervous because of being put in that position. You know, I didn't want to let him down. I wasn't nervous about the game. I was nervous that I didn't want to let him down. Right. And so having that relationship, he kind of calmed me down a little bit, you know, and he's like, dude, you got it. He's like, you're far more mature than I ever was at that age. And taking all the insight from Coach Walters prior to that game, you know, it's to have two of those guys in my corner, obviously Coach Walt being a rival game, but having both those guys in my corner and being able to call defense, it's really been an absolute blessing and a pleasure to be able to know I can lean on either one of those guys just for insight in terms of when situations come up and just being the best I can in those situations.
It's a ways away, but you know you're going to be on the sideline as Coach Walt in a couple months. It'll be interesting. Tell us about some of the portal guys or young guys that we may see that we haven't seen before.
Oh yeah, we lost some guys last year to the NFL, right? But I truly believe the group of guys we have now are just as talented. Now they're inexperienced, but they're just as talented. You know, we brought in a kid by the name of Clayton Bush. He has all the tools and intangibles to be an all Big Ten guy, you know, just in terms of skill set, right? He's only been here through fall camp. He's still learning, but athletically, he has the gifts and the tools. You know, we had a kid by the name of Demetrius Hill. You know, Demetrius Hill was an All-American at FIU, you know, and he's a big, pretty, he runs well, he's physical, you know, and trying to get those guys to understand how we play defense and what's required of them and their duties, you know. We got a guy by the name of Nicario Harper. You know, he made a play yesterday. I'm like, oh my goodness. I have yet, in all the guys that we had drafted, I have yet to see a guy cover the middle of the field the way he did. He had an interception. It was absolutely incredible. And then just some of the young guys that we have, you know, Miles Scott. Miles Scott was a walk-on wide receiver for us that we end up converting. He's having a hell of a fall camp. You know, he started out fourth on the depth chart in spring ball, ended up being the starter by the time spring ball was over, and his future is beyond bright. We got a young man by the name of Mac Resetich. You know, Mac Resetich had no Division I offers. He was a baseball player. Nobody knew about him. And if he was anywhere in the country, outside of the little bitty town called Spring Valley, Illinois, if he was anywhere in the country, he would have had over 30, 40 offers. Wow. You know, went to see him play basketball, and he did a windmill dunk and had like 40 points that night. You know, he ended up scoring like 40 touchdowns in his high school game. But, I mean, we got a bunch of young talent that I think is going to have an opportunity to excel because of the guys we got up front for us.
Goals for tomorrow's scrimmage?
Don't let them in the end zone. You know, obviously defensively, you know, our goals is to get better each and every practice. But as a competitor, you know, you don't want them to score any points. Last year we had an opportunity to lead the country in interceptions and takeaways. But we didn't score too many times off of that. I think we had like maybe one or two defensive touchdowns. And so it's been a real big harp on getting in the end zone defensively when we do take the ball away. And so for the scrimmage tomorrow, the goal is always not to let them in the end zone, but I hope to see progression from scrimmage 1 to 2.
Fair enough. Coach, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys enjoyed the sleep in? You get to bed early too? All right. On that field goal, we got to make sure that we have how many guys out there? 11 guys, all right? This says it all the time. Really hard to win with 10. You can't win with 12, right? It's got to be 11. This guy a pretty good player? Probably some haters out there, right? But this guy's a really good player. When in a church situation, what does everybody do in church? You go what? To your knee, right? So like take a knee, get down. We can call a timeout and be ready to roll, right? Just know this, situational football is where games are lost and won, all right?
That was how we started our day here in Champaign, a team meeting with Bret Bielema, which was fabulous. We, of course, got a chance to talk to him and a lot of his coaches and players during the course of the day. We watched practice. So as we finish everything up and wrap it up, what are the biggest things you learned today?
Well, being in the team meeting was a kick, right? And they covered some situations, Bret did, that may not happen this year, may not happen next year, but if they ever do happen, again, he's in a part of camp where these situations could mean wins or losses. They just don't occur all that much, and then they practice them on the field. Every time we come here, it's like coming to a football clinic. So it's been a great day.
You know, what jumps out and really sticks out to me is when you talk about the offensive lines and the defensive line. We've been in some places where it has taken them a great deal of time to solidify those positions. And they've been able to do it really quickly here. And I think that goes to obviously recruiting is there, developing and teaching is there. But there's a lot of trust in this program from the players to the coaching staff. And it shows. It shows at practice. You talk about communication. You talk about relationships. And it's really clear that this is a tight group here. This team is tight. The coaching staff is tight, and they really want to put themselves in the best positions.
You know, Howard, you mentioned the line of scrimmage. This is number 12 for us. We have 2 left. As much as the game has changed, at the end of this tour, we're going to say these teams have the best line of scrimmage, and they're probably going to have the most success. Spread, all these other different things. It's a line of scrimmage game, and this is a place that is very well equipped at the line of scrimmage.
No doubt. Said it earlier in the show. I'll repeat it here. I think this is an elite line of scrimmage team, both sides of the ball. And so then the question becomes, if you're elite on the line of scrimmage, if you're good in some other areas, which they clearly are, can you get to the Big Ten championship game? They have never done it here in Illinois. This is the last year of the East and West. I think in some ways their schedule is favorable. What do you think? Can this be the team that makes it to Indy?
I will tell you that I believe that the young men in that locker room and the coaches in these offices believe they should have been there last year. But it was a learning experience that they had to go through. When you look at what they have coming back, I believe they will be right in the thick of things. They have to settle on a few things at certain positions, but I think by the end of the year, they will find themselves right in the thick of having an opportunity to go to Indy.
I think the schedule allows them to do that. They need to settle a quarterback play. Now, we haven't seen Iowa and Wisconsin, and those are the other 2 that people think are going to be
Minnesota?
Be in the think of it, Minnesota. So, again, the West was balanced last year. It's going to be balanced this year. But are they going to be in the hunt? I'd be shocked if they weren't in the hunt.
Another one of those teams that will be in the hunt, as you alluded to, the Iowa Hawkeyes. We are going to make the 247-mile journey to Iowa.
I was going to say 250 if you asked me. I had it all set.
Yeah, well, on this one you cheated, though, in fairness. We already said it. We said it out loud a moment ago, how far it was.
Cheating,
Look at me
caught.
incredulously.
Oh my
we will see you from Iowa City. A great day in Champaign. Thanks so much for joining us.